PL with Kell, talking about the game changer in community and family studies. So we're going to unpack what you can do to implement some of these changes right away to make a really big impact on your kids. So the first one is really looking at why are we covering this? Why are we actually going to look at what we do in the option? So the option is one of the biggest things that you can change your approach to straight away to make a really big impact on the kids, because at the moment, many of our kids really struggle with the option because there's so much content. There's learn abouts, there's learn twos, there's higher order questions. There's, our part C of the HSC is really difficult. Our kids really struggle with that. So we're going to be diving into why this is so important and what you can do literally tomorrow to make a change with this with your kids. When I first started teaching CAFS, I would often very much skim over the content. I would leave it to last, and I wouldn't actually touch it for an assessment task for very long. And if I decided to do an assessment on it, it was just for the trial. So the kids were scrambling and trying to get through that content. And I know that many of you feel like that as well, that you're scrambling, you're struggling through the content, and you're kind of not really able to have a full trial because you might have to adjust things because you haven't finished the option. And what a lot of our CAFS collective members have been able to do is to make a tiny tweak, a tiny change with their scope and sequence. So I'd love to hear from you. Where does your option sit in your scope and sequence? Please let me know, because I think it's really important for us to think about that we can make some strategic changes with our scope and sequence to make a really big impact on the kids. And as I said before, the option is the game changer. So we need to do everything that we can to make some tiny tweaks. CAFS collective members, that I've heard this said this before, tiny tweaks to make some big changes. So when you make those tiny tweaks, you will see a massive change in your results. And you can be like our CAFS collective members who have done just that. A tiny change in their scope and sequence has really led to some really good results in their HSC. So for me, when we first started to look at the option, we used data to inform our practice. Now, most of the decisions that we made with our scope and sequences, with the modules that we did or the units of work or what we focused on, was all about what the kids were showing, what was happening in our classrooms. That data, that the kids kind of changed what we did, and obviously using our RAP data really helps us with that. So when we first started implementing this, our results were like maybe an 8, maybe a 9 or a 10 out of 15 for the part C. When we made this very small change, we saw a really big impact on our kids' results. So what we started to do was look at our research methodology results and went, hang on, this is where our kids are lacking. We need to really boost that. We also looked at our option results and went, hang on, there's a bit of a disjoint here. Imagine what it could be if we made a tiny tweak here, a tiny tweak there, and made our IRP focus on the option. As soon as we did that, our results changed. Literally the year after, we then went again, and our results changed again. And they changed for the better. So our kids originally, like for maybe 7 or 8 years, were getting the 8s, 9s, 10s, a few 14s for those high flyers. As soon as we started to embed our option into our IRP, and many of you inside strategic approaches to the IRP have seen this, you've been able to implement that change, we saw a massive increase in our results. Now, if you've listened to me long enough, you'll know that it's not all about the results. It's not all about the HSC, the end game. But if we can do some things along the way to help the kids, then we're going to really make a huge impact on them. So our results went from those 8s, 9s, and 10s, and our results completely changed. And our kids were getting in the 12s, 13s, 14s, and 15s. Even our average kids, maybe our typical kind of band 3 and 4 kids, once we started to actually implement this change, embed our option into the IRP, but also have a really clear structure as to what that IRP looked like, we made a really big change with the kids' results. So we use the scaffolds, which I provide inside the CAFS Collective to help the kids with that. we modelled it, we demonstrated it, and we showed them that this really takes a very different approach to the rest of the HSC paper. And the kids did lots of things with those templates and scaffolds. They kind of used them to practice. They used them to really get to know the structure and then to break down what they were actually doing for their IRP, for their option, to make a really big impact on their HSC results. So the templates that I do share inside the CAFS Collective membership have also had a really big impact on the students of those teachers inside our thriving membership of over 90 teachers across New South Wales, teaching our beautiful course called Community and Family Studies. These templates have made a really big impact. And I've shared throughout the week the results from last year that our teachers helped our students get. So we're talking a high number of band 4, 5s and 6s, students having CAFS as their best subject, CAFS being the best subject at the school. Our kids, achieving in those 90s and in those 80s and 70s across multiple schools, not just in selective schools, not just in schools, that are private, but all across Catholic, private and public schools, all across New South Wales. So how did your kids go for the option in Part C? I would love to hear from you, because I know that's a common question. How do I change that? How do I change the way our kids are approaching this option because they're struggling? They are getting a bit bored with it, or they might be not able to see that end game, that clear picture of what success looks like. And inside the CAFS Collective membership, we show you, and we have multiple masterclasses that you can literally pick up, use the resources in the classroom the next day with your kids. And that is literally what I want for you inside the CAFS Collective. I want you to be able to pick up things that we do and implement it right away. And a lot of our CAFS Collective teachers are action takers. So if you're an action taker, if you're looking to have a community of thriving teachers, of teachers who are there to support you, if you're looking for a community of like-minded teachers where connection is important, where collaboration exists, and where community is over competition, because at the end of the day, we're all teaching the same stuff. So it's us together building on those results and building on what we do with our kids. Now, you've heard me over the last 10 days that Rego is open for the CAFS Collective for the final time this year. And I'm so thrilled to be welcoming a whole heap of new CAFS teachers in our membership. We are up to about 90 teachers across New South Wales. How awesome would it be to have about 10% of the state's teachers inside the CAFS Collective? How awesome would it be to have 100 teachers across New South Wales all on the same page, working together, supporting each other, being cheered on by each other from the sideline? And inside the CAFS Collective, you will have that. So if you have any last minute questions about the CAFS Collective, how it works, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much for joining me over the last 10 days. I know it's full on. You've seen me a lot. And I hope that you have really learnt a lot about yourself, about your CAFS journey, but what you can really do to help the kids, because at the end of the day, it's about them. So thanks again for joining me in our Rego open period. We'll go back to regular programming tomorrow, where I deliver the most amazing value for you as a PDHPE, a TAS and a CAFS teacher. Thanks so much for joining, and I can't wait to see so many of your smiling faces inside the membership.